Welcome to Exit Frag. I'm Zeph. I'm joined by Esports Andy. Today we are going to be talking about the Swiss stage of Masters Bangkok. Andy, it was definitely a week full of matches. I didn't realize how fast we were going through these.
It was well, because what each, if you look at all of Sliggy's VODs, they're all 4.5 hours long because everything was 2-0. I think there were three matches that went
Yep.
to map freeze, and even then, I was saying, EDG and G2 were the only ones where each until the very end, each map was pretty interesting, went longer than this was just a really weird week, whole tournament. All the seed ones won right away. The gaps were really weird this week.
Yeah, there was only less than a handful of games that were 2-1s, and it was the Saturday and the Sunday games. DRX Vitality, Edward Gaming, G2 Esports, and Team Liquid and Sentinels, which is a topic in and of itself. But let's start at the beginning of the week. We are going to talk about Edward Gaming versus Team Liquid. I think coming into this match, a lot of people had this being a bit closer, and I think it's mostly because people just don't watch a lot of China, or they don't realize how good Edward Gaming actually is. I think it was kind of a sloppy match between these two teams. There was a lot of mistakes from both sides, but I still do think that Edward Gaming ended up looking a lot better than Team Liquid in this situation. But I don't want to take anything away from Liquid. They still played good in my opinion.
Well, I think it shows that in this match specifically, especially with Split going to what, a fifth overtime.
Yeah, fifth
Like
overtime.
yeah, if they won Split, it I still think they would have lost because Edward Gaming was just looking better. In this
Yep.
matchup, Chichu, this whole entire tournament, well, he only played two matches, but he's looked insane. He's been looking like the best player in the tournament, and that's saying a lot with Kang Kang, just playing his normal self. The one thing that was I would really say about Team Liquid is there's a lot more promise for this team. They have a lot of sticky moments, moments that just don't look ironed out, but they're really coming from a week off from this time to kickoffs. So it's not like they had much to iron out after doing that dark horse run, but it shows that all their main players, they can all play. We see this in their later matches, but Nats is insane and coming back into his own. Camo is a really good entry for this team, and combining it with Kiko, I can see a lot of promise. Of course, they lost this map, and then that ended up with the sweep. But
Yeah, I think
against EDG's a world champion. like this is
agreed.
a hard match for them, and
Yeah,
I thought they
agreed.
did fine.
Chichu was playing
Yeah.
crazy out of this world in this match. Chichu really was the leading factor for them to win, especially on Pearl. He was playing probably the best that I've ever seen him play. Um, you look at the first map on Split, and man, round 23 for Liquid really was the most headache inducing round because they had EDG pinched on every side of the map, and then they have the Astra orb on near the bomb defusal, and then someone throws a smoke over it, and then they try to go to stop the defuse with the Astra, the gravity well, and it just doesn't. It pulls him into the spike, and I was like, damn, that was really bad. You blew the man advantage, the position advantage, and the tech to stop the diffuse. You ruined three chances to put EDG away, which is insane to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, you don't give the reigning world champions with possibly the best player in the world that many chances. You could put them away. I just remember that there were so many times where Team Liquid had moments where they could push the advantage. They would get the player advantage, and they would kind of play a little bit passive.
Right.
I just, and maybe it's just because of nerves, because they didn't even Nats, and of course everyone will say that they planned that, they oh yeah, right when we started the season we planned to be at Bangkok, but they were realistically Team Liquid ready to be playing in this against the world champions right away. I think that showed that, especially in map 2, where Pearl, they kind of just like got steamrolled.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because yeah,
So
Matt got killed 5 times for stats, man,
yeah,
in Pearl.
it was a definitely a rough match for Team Liquid after the first map, but I think they're coming up. A little more time, and I think they're definitely like in contention. I mean, obviously they're second place in EMEA. Um, I see a lot of people like saying that they're possibly like Carmine Corp, that they may fall off later, but I really don't see that this time, because even though I do talk about them being like sloppy, like they're not like a protocols driven team. Like they're not going to
Mm.
be doing the same thing over and over. And Nats is not that sort of IGL that's going to call the same thing over and over either. Like he's been in this game for a really long time and he knows how to find success. So I don't see that happening.
No, I don't see that either. Especially, there's two different things. Like the team that Carmine had were a lot of younger guys,
Yeah.
just like with a really good coach. So it's going to be protocol driven. This one is like a different team. It has a lot of veterans. It has a lot of younger people, but that have already been there for like a year now.
Yeah.
So like they should do at least better.
Agree. All right, DRX versus Sentinels. Oh my goodness. This did not start out well. I mean, there's not much to talk about here. I mean, DRX destroyed Sentinels on Lotus. They had like no clue what they were doing. I don't really know what to say except like this sucked.
Yeah, I people really were like, because I remember in the podcast episode uh before the Masters went on, that I was really down on Sentinels.
I was
And
very high on Sentinels.
yeah, because I was really high on DRX, and I feel like Lotus, I was like, I'm vindicated. Like I felt so smart in that moment, because like I thought DRX was better than Sentinels, but I didn't think they were gonna like destroy Sentinels on their map pick like that.
Yeah.
But Freeing's like Tejo is really good.
No,
Uh,
Fring showed up this tournament. Like he is one of the
he's
main reasons why this team made it far.
well, yeah, and the funny thing is then like I was hoping to see then John QT on Tejo on Lotus also, because
Yeah.
he's really good on, but he played Viper. So like I don't know, I just felt like their comp was really weird, and then he like really struggled. Like we'll talk about this more later in the
Yes,
later in the week, but
Sen did like go away from their regular picks,
you
which I didn't understand.
and yeah, I just and you can't do that against DRX, of course. Like we'll talk about this later, but DRX didn't make playoffs, but DRX is a really good team, and you can't just like switch up comps like this
Yeah.
or just not be with the meta, and they were punished.
Yes. Yes, indeed, they were. Okay, let's move on to the next match because we do have a lot of matches here. Team Vitality versus T1. I mean, Vitality just stomped T1. I was
Yeah,
not shocked because we did talk about how sloppy T1 looked during the Pacific playoffs, and it kind of showed here. Yeah, they tried making a couple of comebacks, but like I don't know, man. There was just times where I was just like, I mean, Vitality just looked like the way better team. I mean, Les was cooking, Durka was cooking. I mean, it's tough. I mean, the scoreline will say something different, but I still think that like there was not one point where I thought like T1 was going to be able to win both of these maps.
the thing is, and this is like before the season started, everyone was like saying T1 is like the super team in the Pacific, and Team Vitality is the super team in the EMEA. But the difference between these two teams is that Team Vitality like can also play as a unit. I feel like a lot of the times, like they don't just have to rely. There's a lot of times where they can rely on just Les, Durka, Save, Track, like any of their one players just carrying around, doing something incredible. But the thing that I think like differentiates these two super teams, like quote unquote super teams, is that Team Vitality is just a more cohesive team. They don't just do like Meteor does so many weird things by himself a lot of the time
That
when he doesn't need to.
that's because they have him lurking like all
Yeah,
the time.
But why is that your strat? Like, because I know he's a good lurker, and like he's an incredible game sense, but he's one of your better players. He's your might be your best player. You wanted him with your team, and especially when you're playing up against Team Vitality,
Yeah, yeah.
like you can't let Carpe be on his own, even though he did okay too.
Yeah, the round that I wanted to talk about the most, I actually don't have it written here in my notes. It might be round 8, I'm not sure, but it's the round where Durka got the ace on Fracture, and I mean that shit was insane. I mean they throw a Rolling Thunder at him. He tanks the
Yeah,
Rolling Thunder. He plants the spike, and then he finds
yeah,
isolated fights on all of the T1 members. I mean, that shit was just incredible.
it's just everything. Like this team is just until they lose. Like everyone's gonna be like they have to. They're the favorites always.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. G2 versus Trace Esports. I
Not
mean,
much.
they yeah, not much to say. They got 2-0'd here. I was kind of sweating a bit during the first half of map 1
Well,
cuz Trace were looking good on Lotus.
well, I think it really pivoted on Kai. I said this like in one of my videos. I feel like Kai on Vice could make or break this team. If he had a really good performance on Lotus, I think they could have swayed it, or at least on the defense, they could have swayed it to be a closer match.
Mhm.
When he didn't really play that well, it was like, oh man, like they're not their defense isn't gonna be like they mostly just won on retakes. Uh and I don't know, on Vice like it just shows that you're not getting your Vice like util usages as like the value isn't as good as you'd actually want because like Vice usually is better on stopping the attack initially and hitting it right away, and that wasn't really happening. They were just kind of getting overwhelmed with G2 just being G2.
Mhm.
And the thing is the only bet really for Trace was that G2 would not even pay attention to them and forget that they're like goaded on bind, and G2 didn't, and they like bind banned it right away.
Mhm.
So once that happened, I was like, oh, they're done. They're
Yeah,
not going to win 2 maps.
I think also like the moments where like Fang Fang was doing well, it seemed like the rest of the team were able to like follow that and do well as well. But
Mhm.
the moments where like Fang Fang's entry doesn't like work out, like a lot of the team just kind of like falters behind him. And
Mhm.
there's like a couple rounds where they're trying to like especially like on their attack side, and that's why I think like where the weakness showed is like they have like a pretty good idea of what they're doing on defense for Lotus, but then like on the offense, it's like they're relying too much on Fong Fong, and a lot of the times the entry doesn't work. But then like they also like kind of depended hard on the Steel Garden from Vice
Mhm.
on some of their attack rounds, which is why you see it's like their attack is like so weak. They only got 3 rounds, and then G2 were just able to close it out.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and G2's just goaded.
yeah, and then Abyss. I mean, Jesus Christ, they were just getting like destroyed. I mean,
Well, it just shows the skill gap between the two teams. Like one
yeah,
team is a team that can win a Masters, and one team is a team that could possibly be a dark horse.
yeah. So yeah, not much to say here other than like it's tough for Trace, but they're getting better. Like the fact that like you're making G2 fans sweat even a little bit shows that you're at least like fairly decent.
Yeah, I think they could make like a surprise run later in the season in international for sure. Because if everyone's clicking at the right time, the team's good, and we saw that against EDG when they upset them in the upper semifinals in China.
Yeah.
That when they're clicking, when their key players are clicking, they can win against almost anybody. But they didn't, and so they lost.
Team Vitality versus DRX. Honestly, this one was, even though it was close, I feel like this was one of the more vanilla games that we got throughout the bracket. Like nothing was too exciting on Bind. Like at the end of the day, like Vitality ended up winning. Then we got Abyss, where we did get a 13-11. That was probably the most exciting part of it. and it was kind of like the story of like two carries here. It was like Mako carrying and Durka carrying, but like and Mako was able to like get his team like over the line. And then on Split, we got another like really close map. But I don't know, maybe for me, if it's just like not as eventful as Abyss. And then we got like Freeing doing like the carry job on that last map, and Durka was still like the X factor for Vitality. Um, what do you think about this match? Because I came out of this match not thinking that, oh, how good Vitality look. My main concern is like, oh, they're like really reliant on Durka to win.
I just thought it was because like Dirk just went insane and took the game into his hand. Like they're gonna have bad games, and this is what makes Vitality or bad maps, and this is what makes Vitality so like dangerous. Is if Durka didn't have this like 78 kill performance, like Less could have, or
Right.
Trex could have, or Safe could have, or even Kicks could have. And that's the thing that makes them so like when you have that much talent, multiple people have to suffer, and even then, like yeah, it's kind of crazy that when you look at the stats, Dirk is the only one that's like way positive, and then everyone else is like the safe is like -14, and then like Hicks and Les are +1, and then Trex is -2. Like it's crazy, but that's why this team's actually a super team is that anyone can pick it up at any moment and win a map, win a round, win anything because these are world class players. Even when they're playing against a world class team like DRX, because Hyunmin is super good, and he played Yoru all three maps and just played his heart out. And I'm really excited to see this DRX team. I really wished they could have upset at the end because they were so close. They they had to win four in a row to win split. They won three and then they lost.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess we'll talk about each of these teams later on when we do the preview. But let's quickly move on to the next match. Uh, Edward Gaming versus G2 Esports. I am a bit. I was a bit like shocked at this game. Not that I went to three maps, but mostly that G2 lost to Edward Gaming, because I did think that Edward Gaming looked a little worse than usual. Because they went like so close on map 1 against Liquid. But then they show up against G2 and they look like their champions form again, which shocked me.
Well, it's because of like the weird thing. Like I don't know what's up with EDG, but they kind of it must be that they really don't believe that there's any competition in China, even when they lose, because they always just switch up how their comps. They switch up how they play, individuals how they play from like regionally to internationally, and I think we saw that in this G2 match specifically because Team Liquid they switched it up a little bit, but like against G2, since they already kind of knew what G2 was going to do, they could counter strike on that and then kind of switch it up from because they got a week extra time to prep. And
Mm-hmm.
people are complaining about China getting an advantage, but EG just like they have two of the best players in the tournament right now, like in form, like Chi Chu and Kang Kang. And when that's happening, like it was just they were making dumb mistakes on Pearl, yet they would win
Yeah.
against G2, who is like so structured.
Yeah, are we gonna call their fracture composition the EDG comp? Cause Neon and Tejo is like crazy in my opinion.
Well, okay, because I thought it was so crazy how they were playing the Neon now with the Breach Tejo. Like, I didn't understand how they were going to play it at all. And then they played it so much slower than I thought. Like, sometimes, like, he would be slow and then he would, like, speed up. He'd be slow and then he'd speed up. And so he'd avoid a lot of, like, the util that would hurt other Neons.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was just a unique way of playing it that, like, I think just threw off G2. Like I think they just were not prepared for how they would play Fracture, and they played it in a different way than they were expecting.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna quickly move on to T1 versus Trace Esports. Not really too much to talk about here. It's kind of the same thing that happened in the previous match that Trace had with G2. I mean, you're going up against two super teams back to back. This is just what happens.
It was just unlucky for them. Um, they, yeah, they just kind of got unlucky. They're the unlucky team that got faced up against two teams that have a lot of talent.
Yeah,
Like I don't have much to say about this matchup other than T1 was the better team in this instance with just the talent.
agree. All right, Team Liquid versus Sentinels. I don't want to say too much here because
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of thoughts that we're going to save for a video that'll probably come out on Thursday. But what I will say is that after that first match, I was not looking great for Sentinels, and then they had to play Liquid, and that was even worse because second place EMEA just destroyed second place Americas, and it was not great, not great.
I thought that I'll mostly just talk about Team Liquid. Then Natch just showed up. It was like, oh wow, we're back in 2021, and I think like Sliggy or TMV said it in their co-string, but it's like, wow, we're back to 2021 when Nats is the only one that knows how to play the game. Well, I guess that would be TMV.
Yeah.
Sliggy would never say that. But it just Nats was lurking, getting kills, but not even just lurking. Then he would just like walk onto site and then get 3 kills, or just there's so many things that would happen on like Bind when they just destroyed Sentinels 13-1. It was just the weirdest game.
Yeah, I mean, you could see it on the statistics. Nats win 22, 14, and 2 on Lotus. And then Abyss, I mean, Nats did good, 19 and 18.
But Bind was where he
Yeah, but
destroyed.
Bind, he just absolutely owned 25 and 8
And it's
with a
hard when like
25% hedge. Dude, that's insane.
and it's hard to like when then you look at your two players that you're like most excited about for Sentinels with Zekin and Nere, and they go to combined 11 and uh 26 on the map. Like that's just hard to swallow as like if you're a Sentinels fan,
Yeah.
especially when everyone was dogging on Team Liquids. Like it
Yeah, no,
it was
I mean,
yeah.
the amount of hate that we gave Team Liquid on this podcast, yeah, it was pretty bad. I also gave a lot of hate to Liquid on my own videos, and a lot of people were like, "Nope, you're wrong," and
And
I
I
was
fought
wrong.
for them. I fought for them. I was saying you guys are because what was it? Who was it that was
It
just
was
like
Kai. It was Kai.
yeah, Kai was like saying, "Oh, this team's terrible," and he wouldn't even bring up Nats.
No,
He
no, no,
never
no.
brought up Nats.
Okay, 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 okay. You know, he didn't want to put Liquid over Sentinels. It's so funny because they just placed right above them, which is
Yeah,
insane. Like insane, like Jinx from Kai right there.
it's
So
just like I can see where like the talent is with Sentinels. I can totally see like the talent. We saw that on Abyss when it was so close, and Team Liquid just barely pulls it out with Kiko like playing playing really well. We could see the talent in Sentinels, and but then instead we saw like the veteranship of Team Liquid. Like
yeah,
that's what was happening.
yeah. I won't say too much more about Sentinels. You should definitely check out the video. I'm gonna put it in the annotations once it releases. But we're gonna be talking about Sentinels, about their tournament appearance, and like some potential stuff that may happen in the future. Again, there's no official rumors or anything or announcements about roster changes or anything. But I have a feeling that this roster might not be sticking together for long. So yeah. Um, Check out that video if it's already published. T1 versus TRX. Andy, can you tell me who the best team in Korea is?
I guess after this match is T1. Like I wasn't gonna watch this match, and I didn't watch this match because I was like, "There's no way DRX is gonna lose to T1." Going into how sloppy T1 was looking, DRX just looked better. Like I was just I didn't watch it.
Yeah, here on Fracture, DRX did start out pretty strong. They started off 4-0. So if you turn off your TV at this point, then yeah, that's not how the match ended. It did not end in your favor. Yeah, T1 looked like kind of shaky on like certain retakes, but they're still like able to win a couple rounds, like 5 and 6. And I was like particularly concerned because they lose the next 2 rounds, and then T1, especially on defense, has like Buzz on like the op, and I think it was kind of bad because like a lot of the angles on like Fracture, yeah, you can just like satchel out of there, but I never saw like Buzz using the satchels like efficient enough with the op. I felt like maybe if they would have put him on something like a jet or a chamber, like maybe something he's more comfortable with, like it would have worked out better. But as soon as they ended up getting rounds 9 through 11, and then the 12th round DRX gets it. I know there's a ninja diffuse here somewhere. I just can't remember it, and my notes are kind of unreadable for some reason. Um, then we hop onto the attack side, and T1 is super aggressive, and Meteor is just cooking on attack with the lurks. And I don't know, it was just kind of like a perfect storm. I think this is one of those cases where like everyone says like, oh, it's like really statistically hard to beat the same team more than 3 times, and it really showed here because T1 seemed to like have a firm grasp of everything that DRX was doing, and it showed in the next map.
Well, I just thought it's such a bummer because just looking at the stats from Fracture, it's kind of interesting seeing Buzz. Like, so T1's duelist Buzz gets 9 first kills to 1 first death. Compare that to Hyunmin as the Yoru on DRX going 0 and 5 on first kills to deaths. I think that's like a clear reason why Buzz was valuable to DRX. He has years of experience. So when it goes into these elimination matches, that could be the difference maker. And I think, saw that because Hyunmin is an incredible player, but he's young.
And
He's just figuring it out at the big stage.
and I think that the composition here with the Yoru is kind of overcooked. Like I see the Rays being like important, but when we've seen like EDG like run the Neon, I don't know. To me, Yoru feels out of place in Fracture. I could see it on Pearl and I could see it on like a lot of other maps, but I'm not a fan of Yoru on Fracture.
I just think every team's still trying to figure out the Fracture, like duelist, because what we got King on Neon, we got Buzz on Rays, and we got Hyunmin on Yoru. Like, no one's really figured out what's best with against
Right.
the Tejo breach combo. And I could see where the Yoru would be better, especially if you're trying to do more aggressive spots and then you can just TP out when you're getting like cleared. Because the Rays, you actually have to be physically there and everyone snaps onto your head and kills you while you're mid flight. But one of the big things, why did T1 switch again players to Carpe? I did, or from Carpe. What's the deal with
I
that? I just
have
noticed that.
no freaking clue. They keep doing this thing, and it's honestly like pissing me off because sometimes it's Carpe, sometimes it's Sylvan, and I'm just like, I don't get it.
Like he did fine this game. Like again in a huge match because he played in the match before for
Mm.
T1. But like, man, that must be stressful. Like coming in and playing DRX.
I think it's bad. I think it's bad for the team in the long run. I think like they know that they don't have like a solid fifth player. Because I mean, even at the beginning of the season, like absolutely nobody was excited about Sylvan or Carpe being part of this team. It was really like all the other guys on this team, and the fact that
Yeah.
Izu he was already a good player. He just needed the right team, and I think it's been showing off a lot more now. But I don't know. As far as like Sylvan and Carpe, like I don't know what exactly is going on with that. I know there was like an interview saying something about like this gives us the best chance to win, which is an incredibly vague statement that says nothing about the team situation. But
And
I don't know. I just feel like if they get the chance, like they're gonna try to get somebody else.
and it's gonna be because yeah, I guess they need their kicks. Like
Yeah,
who's their kicks of the team? Like right now it's Carpe slash Sylvan.
and
Like they need that player, and especially on the Smokes agent. Like
and what I don't understand is like they have an academy team. Why haven't like if you're really struggling between these two players, just pull someone from academy. Like it's not that big of a deal.
yeah, it's just such a weird thing. Yet they won. Yet they blow out DRX on Pearl,
Yeah,
and then qualify for the playoffs.
yeah, legitimately nothing to talk about on the next map. Like yeah, after round 7, it's the game was over. Like there was just nothing. I mean, Izu was fucking cooking these guys. He did the fake Yoru clone. He he goes like on it's on B long and he throws himself like past the smoke, past the razor vines into like the backside of B. He's like staring at the wall. He flicks into like the halls area, and then he walks down. He gets like 2 right away, and I was like, dang, like the dude is cooking. And I'm really happy for Izu that he's like finally showing off. Please do not bring Neon again. Even though you guys won thanks to Izu, I don't like the Neon pick here.
On
It
Pearl,
look
that's
it
just so
looked the
weird.
worst. Yeah,
He's yeah, that's just such a weird comp, especially not even going with the Tejo on this map.
exactly, exactly.
Or Vice, or it's just a weird comp, and I think it's behind the times.
Yeah, I think here I don't know how they did it, but they managed to just destroy DRX. I don't know that this comp works against anybody else.
Once this comp is out, you're not going to win against like any of the champion, like the playoff teams with
No.
that comp again, because you can just counter strat it.
Yep. Okay. And then we have our last game, G2 versus Team Liquid. Yeah, it was shoot, let me see here. It was not very it's not very good day for Team Liquid. They kind of got stomped on the Haven pick. I mean, G2 just looked like way better. There's no one even here that is like that did like incredible. It's just a lot of like they just got team diffed.
Well, I think they got Mac diff because, like, truthfully, they Team Liquid have the weakest. And I guess you could say Trace has a weaker map pool, but like Team Liquid was exposed. Like, you can destroy them on Lotus or Pearl. Like,
They don't have a
so
real grasp of the 3 site maps.
no, they don't, and it makes sense with like the team core who's IGLing. It makes sense, and that's why I think with the offseat, like with the break between Split One, especially like I don't know who their group is, but like I'm assuming they're going to be playing some worse teams than G2. um,
Right.
and so they're going to get that experience, and I think they ran into their limit in the Masters. I don't think they were a playoff team. They weren't even supposed to be in this tournament. So this is really impressive either way.
Yeah. Um I agree. I think Liquid has a lot to work on and G2 was just I mean they've been ready to be a top team, a playoff team.
Yeah.
I was worried coming into this game, but after the first map I wasn't so much.
Yeah, I just have to like it's nice that like when certain players have like not as good aim games, like Leaf having a weaker game of Vice or Jajimo still figuring out Yoru, that the team's just a good team. And they're built not just on one player, but on a system. And they're built with an idea of strategy in mind and playing as a fit. And the reason why people say that G2 plays perfect Valorant isn't because of their aiming or anything, it's that they do the small things. They like get that extra orb, or they make sure that the right person gets that. Like, and that's the thing is, and that's how they're going to slowly win games against worse teams. Is
Yeah,
they'll always lose because of that.
the usage of utility was a huge part of their win on Haven. I mean, just go look at the last round. Like I think they were at a disadvantage at 3v2, and they still managed to win just because how they use their utility. So
Yeah, they're efficient with value. Like
yeah.
they get enough value out of everything.
And that was our recap of week 1 of Masters Bangkok. Join us tomorrow as we preview and predict the playoff portion of it. For Esports Andy, I'm Zaf. We'll see you tomorrow.